In this video, I will be talking about Kung Fu. Now, as many of you know, Kung Fu right now got an awakening by Xu Xiaolong. So Xu Xiaolong, he challenged Kung Fu master. He beat up a lot of them. The fault of that one is not the Kung Fu. The fault of that one is the Kung Fu master. Okay? The fault that Xu Xiaolong beat up the Kung Fu master is not because the Kung Fu is wrong. It's because the way they practice the Kung Fu is wrong. The Kung Fu styles have been passed on correctly, right? If you look at Wing Chun, you look at Xing Yi, you look at animal style. All of these Kung Fu styles, drunken style Kung Fu, all of these Kung Fu styles still exist. The forms, the ways to learn the different strikes, they are there. What is not there is to train to fight. There's a difference between knowing what is going to happen and not knowing what is going to happen. This is why Kung Fu right now is perfectly legitimate in movies, whereas in real life, fighting versus MMA people is not useful at all. When you know what's going to happen, it means that if this is how it works, clearly, if you know what is going to happen, then if you know what is going to happen, immediately you are able to use Kung Fu, right? Therefore, we must understand, how can I know what's going to happen? If when I know what is going to happen, I can use Kung Fu perfectly, then I should start training to know what is going to happen. That is the fundamental key idea that you have to understand and think about and practice. You have to think about a method so that you can train and know what is going to happen. I will go in more detail now. In fighting, in boxing, the fighters are able to think. Everything that they do has a reason. Alright? And boxing in opposition to Kung Fu is very simple. Okay? Relatively simple in that Kung Fu is about the mouse. Okay? Kung Fu is about, instead of getting more power, I'm gonna use my mind to do something. Okay, instead of developing my power, my muscle, instead of developing my fitness, I am going to use my mind. And what your mind can do is put more steps. Okay, in boxing, it's a 1-2. Boxing, they have the same thing. In boxing, how they do it is the coach has pads, and it's not so much the complexity of, I go ahead and I do different moves, because in boxing they use only a couple of moves. They use jab, cross, hook, so on. In Kung Fu, there are many, many, many more moves, because the more moves you have, the more you can outwit your opponent. Do you understand me? If I play chess and if I'm playing chess and I have all my pieces, it's more likely for me to get a checkmate than if we're down to just a rook each. Because I have more ways to confuse and outthink my opponent. But you cannot do this unless you actually can think, right? If I'm going to outthink my opponent, and I don't know how to think, you cannot use it. You know what I'm saying? So you have to develop a way of thinking. So now we consider, right? How can we actually develop thinking? It's in the Kung Fu itself. Okay, it's pattern recognition. This is why Kung Fu is not working. It's because you are using pattern recognition on your Kung Fu style. Wing Chun versus Wing Chun is fine. You see Wing Chun all the time. Tai Chi versus Tai Chi is fine. You see Tai Chi all the time. Tai Chi versus Tai Chi push hands. You have pattern recognition. But you don't have pattern recognition if you only practice versus Xingyi people and you suddenly start fighting a boxer. You need to have pattern recognition of a boxer fighting you to be able to fight a boxer. Right? So it doesn't make sense to be only practicing against Xingyi. Say, I want to use Xingyi and I only practice using Xingyi, and then I go to a fight against a boxer. You have to think. Look, it's very simple. Kung Fu, back in the old days, there are always lots of Kung Fu masters together. Okay, you have animal style, Xingyi, Wing Chun, Shaolin, Drunken. You have a whole group of people that all come together to teach the nation and practice. Okay? And that's how they learn every style, and then they can fight that way. If you do not know the style, you are in trouble. If you do not know the style, what is your initial and only strategy? Just punch him first, hurt him first before he... Do you see the Raw Tang fight where there was an MMA fighter versus Raw Tang? The MMA fighter choked him out. Raw Tang's only hope was to kick him hard and break his leg, or kick him hard and hit his head before he come and use Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. This is why MMA is so good against Kung Fu. MMA know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and know boxing, and know kickboxing, and so you know all these things, right? So nowadays, MMA basically is what Kung Fu was before. Kung Fu, you have so many people come from different. People think, oh, it's one Kung Fu man. No, it's not. It's not. The fighters, they know everything. So when you go practice and you want to be an MMA fighter, you want to be an MMA fighter with Xingyi. Only Xingyi is okay. If you want to practice other Kung Fu, it's okay. But you want to beat MMA only using Xingyi. You have to do Xingyi versus boxing, Xingyi versus kickboxing, Xingyi versus Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You have to do each of these because you have to develop the pattern recognition, right? And then you can outsmart them with your style. But until you learn to think, what does thinking mean? We play chess, what do? You have to recognize the pattern. There's a pattern, and then if you see it, then you can. If you cannot see it, you cannot use your art. Next is thinking. After I recognize the pattern, what do I gotta do? You have to work on decision making. That comes with sparring. You have to spar versus the exact art that you're fighting against. Do you think you can play professional level badminton if you've never been mentally in that level? No, you cannot keep up. You have to be able to keep up to that level. So if you're gonna fight a professional MMA fighter, you better be training with a professional MMA. The whole idea is that these Kung Fu people have, old Kung Fu masters would look and say it's crazy. Because you're not doing anything properly. How can you go and fight a professional MMA fighter who has sparred at a high level using MMA all the time? How can you fight that guy if you don't even spar high level MMA fighters? You don't have the pattern recognition, you don't have the quickness of thinking, you don't have the under pressure, you don't have the under pressure under pressure practice. You don't have the under pressure action. How can you? Right? So again, let me just reiterate everything. Pattern recognition. Pattern recognition. You have to train. I keep saying it, nobody listens, okay? I keep saying, if you're gonna fight boxing, you need to know boxing. Because, let me give you a, let me give you kind of an analogy. Let's say you are a figure skater. And then I'll give you a better one. Let's say you are a American football player. Let's say you are a track. Let's say you are Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt, fastest man in the world. You're Usain Bolt. And now, all of a sudden, they ask you to play soccer. You don't have the IQ of playing soccer. You don't have the skill. It's a bad analogy, but what I'm trying to say is, if I'm going to go and I'm going to fight a boxer, and I've never reacted to these, I watch all these matches and this is what happened. The Kung Fu fighter has never seen what the boxer is doing. This is why you need to practice with a boxer. How do you expect you're gonna, this boxer come? And you never practice fighting a boxer. So you play basketball. And you've only been playing versus your friends from your high school. And then all of a sudden this professional basketball player comes in. His moves are different from anything you ever seen, and you're supposed to fight him. When he's seen your moves. But so you're like thinking, how come, he can fight me? Because yours is similar. Yours is like a dumbed down version because you don't do the pattern recognition. I don't know how to say this. You don't do anything correctly because Kung Fu, if you want to outsmart someone, you should be smarter than them. Right? If I'm going to be able to outsmart someone, my brain, the way I see openings, the way I see little details, should be better. No? If I have a boxing coach, and the boxing coach is coming here, and he's teaching the student how to fight, and he's giving him all this knowledge. And what if let's say for instance, the boxing coach, he comes and the boxing coach trains himself and the boxing coach fights. Now, if you're going to outsmart that boxing coach, you better be sure that you're smarter than him. If you're not smarter than him, you can't see what he sees. You can't notice the little details that the boxing coach sees. How are you going to outsmart him? Because when you try to do some fancy stuff, you don't have the knowledge. Knowledge is number one in Kung Fu. If you don't have this, how you can... That's it. So make sure you have that. Right? Train. The intention to outsmart. All these Kung Fu style are already here. It's not hard. You just don't even try to do it. You know, you so much pride. I'm not gonna touch Kung Fu. I'm not gonna touch boxing at all. But how are you gonna fight boxing? I'm not even gonna look at boxing. I'm gonna imagine. How you know that? You know? You don't practice against boxing, how are you gonna know? When the guy throws a jab, how are you gonna know what to do? He throws a... when he feints, you never seen a feint before, how are you gonna know? The only way a Kung Fu fighter is gonna beat an MMA fighter is for the Kung Fu fighter to become an MMA fighter and then add on his art. Become MMA versus MMA plus Kung Fu. You might think, oh, okay, No. You can know MMA on the side, Kung Fu. You don't use MMA, but you have it in your belt. Right? If I am fighting and I have a sword and another sword. Okay. I have a sword and a dagger. This is the weapon I have. Right? If you are fighting and you have just a sword. Right? Now, I might not use my sword against you, but I have it in here. And I have the opportunity to use it. More importantly, if I have my sword in here and I fight you, okay? If I have to use my sword, I can use it. Also, I have trained using the sword, so I understand everything that comes with the sword. If the sword is coming, I know how to fight against the sword. So now we reiterate the beginning question. How can we know what's to come? Right? Pattern recognition. What's the answer to Kung Fu? In Kung Fu, apparently Wing Chun beat Tyson. Right? There I don't know if I forgot what his name was, but Donnie Yen, I think. Donnie Yen beat Tyson. And this is because it's choreographed. Okay, you know what's coming next. So how can we know what's coming next? Okay, number one, fight against the art you're fighting against. Develop knowledge equivalent to your opponent about fighting. It's all in the head. And then spar using, first of all, so you want to have boxer versus you, and you develop forms. In Shaolin, there's something called two-person forms. You fight, but the fight is controlled. It's two people. You recognize the patterns slowly, and then you do it slowly, and then more fast with two people. And you have a set, permanent order to things that you fight. Okay, this is what you do versus the boxer. You have to create something new, because boxing is new. Boxing don't exist like this back then. So with boxing, you have to create form. You have to let him do you things, and then you do slowly. This is how you do pattern recognition. And once you have the pattern recognition, then you can think and spar. Slow sparring, fast sparring.